My name's James. Just your regular guy trying to make ends meet. A few months back, I had this old PS4 lying around, gathering dust after an upgrade. Moving into a new place wasn't cheap, so I figured, why not sell it? Quick cash, right? I priced it low, $100. It wasn't about making a killing, just clearing space and covering a few bills. Within minutes, I got a message. The name on the account? Ryan. He seemed friendly, polite, eager, maybe a little too eager. Ryan wanted to meet the same night, after dark, near his place. I hesitated for a second. Maybe I should wait for someone else. But then again, I thought, who's got time to overthink? It's just a quick sale, right? My girlfriend warned me to play it safe. I told her, it's no big deal. What's the worst that could happen? I tossed the PS4 onto the passenger seat, checked the address, and hit the road. The meetup spot wasn't far, just a quiet lot on the edge of town. Seemed fine enough. Until I got there. When I pulled in, my headlights swept over the lot. It was empty except for a beat-up sedan parked under that one flickering light. Something about the way it just parked there rubbed me off the wrong way. But I figured this was just some guy trying to buy a PS4, right? No big deal. I got out, looked around. It was quiet. Way too quiet. No sounds, no movement, except for the occasional car passing on the highway in the distance. My gut told me to leave. I should have listened. I called out, "You Ryan?" He nodded barely. He was hunched over like he didn't want me to get a good look at him. Something wasn't right, but I told myself I was just overthinking. Then I caught the image of something. A knife, small but sharp enough. My heart jumped into my throat. Before I could even process what was happening, the car door slammed, and two more guys came out of the sedan. They surrounded me, demanding my wallet, my phone, and the keys to my car. My hands were shaking as I tried to think. If I gave them everything, would they just let me go? Or was this about to get worse? When the guy with the crowbar turned his back, I ran. I just bolted. My legs burned, my chest tightened, but I didn't stop. The sounds of their footsteps, their shouting, they were right behind me. I saw the gas station up ahead. It felt like miles away, but it was my only shot. I ran harder, ignoring the pain, the fear. All I could think was, don't stop. Just don't stop. When I finally burst through that gas station door, I didn't care who saw me. I didn't care about anything but getting away. I was panting, shaking, barely able to form words. But somehow I managed to tell the clerk to call the cops. The cops showed up, took my statement, and checked the area. But the guys were gone. No sign of them. No traces left behind. They told me it wasn't the first time someone reported a setup like this. The same kind of thing happened to other people in the same lot. Same deal, different day. Even with the police there, I felt empty. I should have been relieved, right? But I wasn't. I couldn't stop thinking about what could have happened. What almost happened. I couldn't sleep for weeks. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that knife. Heard those footsteps behind me getting closer. Even the smallest noise would set me off. I stopped using Facebook Marketplace. Hell, I stopped using anything that could lead me into another situation like that. I thought I'd moved on, but every time I see that same parking lot in my rearview mirror, my heart skips a beat. What if they were still out there watching? What if they hadn't been done with me yet? I don't know if I'll ever feel safe again. Jason was growing up fast, too fast. His old bed frame, the one he's had since he was 4, was barely holding together. It was time for something new, something better. I'd spent weeks looking, scrolling through options that were either way too expensive or just didn't feel right. But I finally found it. The perfect bed frame. Sturdy, stylish, and at a price that made me feel like I'd hit the jackpot. The seller had glowing reviews, a normal profile picture, and their messages were polite and helpful. Everything about it just seemed normal. We arranged the pickup for later that evening. I remember feeling so relieved. Finally, I'd found something Jason would love. And I wouldn't have to spend a fortune. At first, everything seemed normal. Quick replies, clear details, even a friendly tone. But as we kept talking, something began to shift. It wasn't anything big, just small things that didn't quite line up. He was eager. Too eager. Tomorrow works best, he insisted, almost pushing for a specific time. When I asked for the address, there was this pause, like he needed a moment to decide. Then suddenly a street name appeared on my screen. It didn't ring a bell, but I didn't think much of it at first. I tried to keep the conversation casual, asking about the frame's condition. His reply came almost instantly. Perfect shape. No hesitation, no details. Like he'd answered the same question 100 times before. It should have reassured me, but it didn't. I should have stopped and thought it through. Maybe asked a few more questions, but instead, I grabbed my keys and told myself it was just a good deal I didn't want to miss. He told me to come alone at the time. It barely registered as strange. Maybe it was just his way of keeping things simple. And when he said the bed was in a storage unit, I brushed it off. A lot of people store extra furniture in places like that. It made sense. It wasn't until I plugged the address into my GPS that I realized how far out of the way it was. No neighborhoods, no busy streets. Just a stretch of empty industrial buildings at the edge of town. But still, I told myself it was fine. Just a quick pickup. In and out. Before I left, I told Jason where I was going. I even made sure to text him the address and keep my phone fully charged, just in case. It felt a little overboard, but I chalked it up to habit. I wasn't really worried. Not yet. When I arrived, the place was completely still, like it had been forgotten. Rows of storage units stretched out in every direction. The kind of place you wouldn't notice unless you were looking for it. I parked, grabbed my phone, and sent the seller a quick text to let him know I was there. He was there, just like he said. But he wasn't alone. Standing next to him was another man, someone I hadn't been told about. I slowed down, unsure of what to think. He greeted me like everything was fine. His voice was friendly enough, but his smile, it felt like he was forcing it. He introduced me to the other man, but the guy didn't say a single word, just stood there, watching. Inside, the air was thick and musty, like the place hadn't been opened in years. The bed frame was barely visible in the dim light. Everything about the space felt cramped, claustrophobic. But I kept telling myself it was just a storage unit. It had to be fine. That's when I realized it. The door wasn't just closed, it was locked. I tried to stay calm, to act like nothing was wrong. But my heart was racing, and in that moment, I knew I wasn't in control anymore. He started talking about extras. Things he thought I might be interested in. Furniture, tools, random pieces of junk. None of it was in the listing, and none of it made sense for him to bring up now. While he spoke, the other man stayed near the door. Not moving, not speaking, just there, blocking the only way out. My gut told me something wasn't right, but I couldn't figure out what they were trying to do. I knew I needed to leave. I tried to keep calm, to act like I wasn't worried. As I moved toward the door, the guy by it stepped aside. Just barely. It wasn't enough to get out without brushing past him, and I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. That message, it was all I needed to snap out of whatever fog I was in. I wasn't waiting to find out what their plan was. Whatever this was, I had to leave, and I had to leave now. I didn't think, I just ran. The seller shouted something behind me, but I didn't stop to listen. My only thought was getting to my car before they could catch up. Every step felt like it took forever, but I could hear them closing the distance. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. I didn't wait to see what they'd do next. I threw the car in reverse, hit the gas, and got out of there as fast as I could. My mind was racing, but I didn't dare look back. As I sped away, I saw them standing there, just watching me. They didn't follow, but the way they stood, still, like they didn't need to move, made my stomach churn. I couldn't stop shaking. Every time I glanced in the mirror, I half expected to see headlights following me. It wasn't until I pulled into my driveway that I finally let myself breathe again. The first thing I did when I got home was report the listing. I wrote everything. The messages, the address, the men. Knowing deep down it probably wouldn't lead anywhere. But I couldn't just do nothing. My hands were shaking as I hit send. The weight of what almost happened sinking in. Even now, months later, I can still picture their faces. The way they stood there, watching, like they didn't care if I got away. I don't know if they planned to rob me or something worse, but whatever it was, I'm grateful I didn't stick around to find out. I never thought buying a secondhand desk would force me to lock my doors at 3 a.m., fearing for my life. I mean, Facebook Marketplace, right? It's supposed to be safe. Profiles, ratings, pictures, all of it makes it seem like a simple, easy way to get what you need. It's just a desk, for crying out loud. You meet someone, exchange money, and walk away. No harm done. Or so I thought. But what was supposed to be a quick transaction turned into a nightmare. It didn't take long before everything I thought I knew about safety, about trust, shattered into pieces. And as it all unfolded, I realized something that still haunts me. Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones hiding in plain sight. I was looking for a desk. Not anything fancy, just something sturdy for my small apartment. You know the kind? A place to work, maybe eat dinner, nothing too complicated. I searched through page after page of overpriced junk. Most were either too small, falling apart, or way out of my price range. I finally did see something I like. We exchanged a few messages, casual stuff, nothing that raised any alarms. The guy seemed normal. He even called me dude, like we were old friends. He sent over more pictures, which made me feel even better about it. He said he was just clearing out a storage unit and was looking to unload a bunch of things fast. When I asked if we could meet, he suggested his place. Not in a store, not at a coffee shop like I'd expected. His garage attached to a rental property. Nothing fancy, but he mentioned it was easier for him since the place was a mess with boxes everywhere. I agreed, and we set a time. As I drove to the address, I wasn't sure what to expect. It wasn't exactly the suburbs, but it wasn't somewhere you'd call sketchy either. A quiet street, lined with identical houses. Nothing out of the ordinary. It should have felt familiar, safe even, but something about it didn't sit right. When I finally pulled up in front of the house, it looked just like the others. 2 stories, small yard, nothing special. But the lights were off except for one dim lamp in the far corner of the living room, barely casting any light through the window. It gave the place a strange feel, like it wasn't really alive, like no one was home, even though I knew someone was supposed to be. As I got out of my car, I saw the garage door was already open, just a crack. The seller's message popped back into my mind. Just park inside makes it easier for both of us. I wasn't sure at first, but it was too late to back out now. I figured he was just trying to get the desk closer to my car. I hesitated as I rolled forward, but the seller, a man in his mid-30s, stepped into the garage and waved me in, his friendly smile wide. "Hey, dude, come on in," he called out. I could tell he was trying to sound casual, but there was something about his insistence that felt strange. He didn't just stand there and wait. He moved toward the car, guiding me in with his gestures, almost too eager to get me inside. I followed him into the garage. The second I stepped inside, I realized there was no desk in sight. Just boxes, tools, and old furniture piled up in the corners. The place was cluttered, dark, and strangely empty. It wasn't what I expected, but before I could think about it, the seller stepped forward and closed the door behind me. I asked about the desk, trying to sound casual. "Hey, where's the desk?" He didn't miss a beat. "Oh, it's buried back there," he said, waving vaguely toward the back of the garage. He smiled, but his eyes didn't. "Come on, I'll show you." And then he started walking deeper into the shadows, motioning for me to follow. I hesitated. As I stood there debating whether to follow, I heard it. A shuffle behind me. I turned just in time to see another man stepping into the garage. I hadn't heard him arrive, and he didn't say a word. He was holding a wrench, wiping his hands like he'd been working on something. But he wasn't looking at the tools. He was looking at me. The first guy glanced over his shoulder like this was completely normal. "Oh, don't mind him. He's just helping me clear some stuff out." That's when I realized this wasn't going to be as simple as picking up a desk. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. My hand slipped into my pocket, fingers wrapping tight around my car keys. They were my only weapon, my only way out. The first guy turned to me, his smile gone. "Relax, dude," he said. "We just want to ask you something." But his tone had changed. It wasn't friendly anymore, it was cold. He stepped closer, cutting off my path to the door. The second guy leaned against the wall now, arms crossed, watching me like a hawk. "How much cash you got on you?" the first guy asked. Then came the next question, and it sent a chill down my spine. "You live alone?" My heart was racing. I forced a laugh, trying to keep them talking while my mind scrambled for a plan. I could see the second guy shifting, reaching for something on the floor. A wrench, maybe. I didn't wait to find out. I threw everything I had into my next move. I turned and lunged for the garage door, slamming my shoulder against it before it could close all the way. The metal groaned under the force, but it was enough to jolt the second guy. He stumbled back, caught off guard. I didn't stop. I grabbed the edge of the door, yanking it up as hard as I could. My legs were already moving, carrying me toward the car. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The car door slammed behind me, and my hands fumbled with the keys, the adrenaline making it impossible to stay steady. The engine roared to life, and I didn't wait to see what they were doing. I hit the gas, tires screeching as I tore out of there. I drove aimlessly for blocks, too scared to pull over, too frantic to think straight. Finally, I found myself in a gas station parking lot. I locked the doors, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. Now that you've heard these horrifying stories, I have to ask, how far would you go for that Facebook Marketplace item? Would you also ignore the warning signs, or would you walk away? Or tell me, how would you handle the situations in these stories? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to hear your take on this. And if you want more true stories like this, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss nerve-wracking stories like these. Share this video with your friends too, because if they think the marketplace is safe, they might want to think again.